Output: my ex told me, real love means letting me go to my soulmate. Now, when she begs to return, I say that I found my soulmate, and she should be glad for me. There are moments in life that shatter everything you thought you knew, moments that redefine betrayal not as a stab in the back, but as a bizarre, almost celebratory declaration. I had one of those mornings, and it started with the woman I loved standing at the foot of our bed, radiating a joy that wasn't for me. The soft morning light barely pierced the blinds that day, casting long, lazy shadows across our bedroom, a room that, just moments before, felt like our sanctuary. The air, usually thick with the quiet hum of shared sleep, was suddenly charged, heavy with an unspoken truth I wasn't ready to hear. Before I could even ask what was wrong, before I could fully process the strange, pitying freedom in her eyes, she dropped the words that would echo in my head for months: I met my soulmate. The way Sarah said it wasn't apologetic. It wasn't sad. It was excited, like she'd just won the lottery, and I was supposed to congratulate her. Sarah and I had been together for 3 incredible years, living under the same roof for one. I genuinely believed we were building towards a future, a home, marriage, kids, the whole 9 yards. She worked at a daycare downtown, I was in tech sales. We had our routines, our silly inside jokes, and a fluffy cat named Biscuit who she picked out herself. And then, that one Wednesday morning, everything I thought was solid just evaporated. She told me his name was David, that he worked security at the mall near her job, that they'd been talking for 2 months, and that she felt a connection with him she'd never, ever felt with anyone, not even me. My stomach dropped. I asked her, my voice barely a whisper, if she'd been cheating. She looked at me, utterly offended, as if I was the unreasonable one. It's not cheating, she declared, when it's destiny. I remember just sitting there on the edge of the bed, the mattress still warm from her side, trying to wrap my head around how someone I'd shared so much life with could reframe blatant betrayal as some kind of spiritual awakening. She packed a bag that very same day, said she'd be back for the rest later. And right before she walked out the door, she turned, fixed me with that same unsettlingly joyous gaze, and said something I will never, ever forget: if you truly loved me, you'd be happy for me and my soulmate. The door clicked shut, a final, hollow sound, and I just sat there, staring at the empty space where she'd been. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and scooped out everything that mattered. I didn't cry right away. I think I was too shocked, too numb. But when it hit me later that night, it hit hard. I called my brother, and he showed up with beer and pizza. He didn't say much, just sat with me while I tried to explain, tried to understand, how someone could leave like that, with so much certainty, with so little regret. He told me Sarah had always been a little dramatic, a little self-centered. And maybe, just maybe, he was right. Looking back, I could see flickers, moments where she'd made everything about her feelings, her needs, her version of how things should be. But I'd always written it off as passion, as intensity. The next few weeks were a blur of numb routines. Go to work, come home, microwave another lonely dinner. I avoided our favorite restaurants, our trails, anything that whispered her name. Friends tried to set me up, told me the best way to get over someone was to meet someone new. But I wasn't ready. I was still stuck on that phrase, if you truly loved me. It felt like my love had been tested, and I'd failed by not celebrating my own abandonment. I thought letting her go without a fight made me noble, mature, evolved. But really, it just made me empty. Sarah texted a few times in those first months, logistical stuff mostly, asking about mail, about Biscuit, about a lamp she'd left behind. And every single time her name lit up my phone, my stomach dropped. I kept my responses short, polite. Didn't ask about David, didn't ask if she was happy, because part of me didn't want to know, and another part of me was absolutely terrified she'd say yes. One text particularly stuck with me. She sent it around 2 a.m. on a Saturday, asking if I remembered the night we'd adopted Biscuit. I didn't respond. I knew she was testing something, seeing if I'd engage, if there was still an opening. I refused to give it to her. Around month 4, something shifted. I started feeling like myself again, or at least a version of myself that could function without that constant ache. I joined a gym, started running, lost some weight, even grew a beard. All the cliché post-breakup reinvention things, and surprisingly, they actually kind of worked. My brother dragged me to a concert one Friday night, some indie band I'd never heard of, and halfway through, I realized I hadn't thought about Sarah once in 3 hours. That felt like progress. Real progress. Then, one Saturday, I was at a coffee shop near my apartment, the kind with exposed brick and overpriced lattes, and this woman in line ahead of me turned around and smiled. "You look like you're deciding between caffeine and a nap," she said, her eyes sparkling. Her name was Alejandra. She was a graphic designer, and she had this calm, grounded energy that felt like the exact opposite of everything Sarah had been. We talked for 20 minutes right there in the coffee shop, exchanged numbers, and I left feeling lighter than I had in months. Our first date was dinner at a Thai place downtown, nothing fancy. And I remember thinking how easy it felt. She asked questions and actually listened. She didn't need to be the center of attention or turn every conversation into something about fate or destiny. Alejandra was just real. She had her own life, her own friends, her own apartment across town, and she didn't expect me to fill every gap or solve every problem. We started seeing each other regularly, twice a week at first, then more. And by month 3, I realized I was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy, in a way I hadn't been even before Sarah left. Alejandra never played games, never tested me, never made me guess what she was feeling. And that simplicity felt revolutionary after years of Sarah's emotional roller coasters. I stopped checking Sarah's social media, stopped wondering if she was still with David, stopped replaying that morning in my head. For the first time since the breakup, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just surviving. Alejandra met my brother, my friends, and everyone said the same thing: she's good for you. She's stable. Kind. Real. My brother pulled me aside one night after dinner with Alejandra and said he hadn't seen me this relaxed in years, maybe ever. And that comment hit me harder than I expected, because he was right. Around month 10, I started thinking about rings, about proposals, about actually building a future with someone who wanted to build it with me. And the idea didn't scare me the way I thought it would. I took Alejandra to the coast for a long weekend. We stayed in this little bed and breakfast overlooking the water, and on the last night, I asked her to marry me on the beach at sunset. She said yes, without hesitation, without drama. Just pure, unadulterated joy. We told our families, started planning an engagement party, picked a date for the wedding. I felt like I'd finally closed the chapter on Sarah, like she was just a painful memory that had ultimately led me somewhere better. I even found myself grateful, in a weird way. Because without that pain, I never would have appreciated what real stability felt like. Never would have recognized how exhausting it had been to constantly manage someone else's emotions. A year after Sarah walked out, I was engaged to someone who actually valued me, who didn't see love as a competition or a cosmic test. And I thought that was the end of her role in my life. I was very, very wrong. The engagement party was supposed to be small, maybe 40 people, at this event space downtown with exposed beams and string lights. Nothing over the top, just family and close friends celebrating something that felt profoundly right. Alejandra's mom had helped with the planning. My brother handled the music. And everything was going perfectly, until it wasn't. I was standing near the bar, chatting with my cousin, when I saw her walk in. And for a second, I thought I was hallucinating, like my brain had conjured her out of some leftover anxiety. Sarah was wearing a cream-colored dress, the kind you'd wear to a garden party or maybe someone else's wedding. And she had this expression on her face like she belonged there, like she'd been invited and was just fashionably late. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might actually throw up right there next to the appetizer table. Alejandra was across the room, talking to her sister, and hadn't seen her yet. I felt this immediate panic about what was going to happen, how this was going to play out, whether I should intercept Sarah before she got deeper into the space. I started walking toward her, but she moved fast, weaving through clusters of guests like she knew exactly where she was going. Before I could reach her, she grabbed a glass of champagne off a tray and positioned herself near the small stage we'd set up for toasts. My brother saw her and looked at me with this what the hell expression, and I just shook my head because I didn't have words yet. Didn't have a plan. Was still trying to process that she'd actually crashed my engagement party. She didn't approach me directly. Didn't pull me aside for some private, dramatic conversation. Instead, she just stood there, sipping champagne and watching. And the worst part was how comfortable she looked, like she was observing something that involved her, something she had a stake in. A few guests recognized her. I could see the confused glances, the whispered questions, people trying to figure out why my ex-girlfriend was at my engagement party in a dress that screamed main character energy. My cousin walked over and quietly asked if I wanted him to handle it, meaning, ask her to leave, but I told him to wait, foolishly hoping she'd just make an appearance and leave on her own. Alejandra finally noticed her. I saw the moment of recognition cross her face, and she walked over to me. "Is that Sarah?" she asked quietly. I nodded, and she squeezed my hand. We should just ignore her and let her leave on her own. But Sarah wasn't planning to leave quietly. About 20 minutes into the party, my brother was supposed to give a toast. He'd gone up to the microphone and started talking about how happy he was for us. And then, suddenly, Sarah was moving toward the stage. She didn't ask permission, didn't wait for an invitation. She just walked up and took the microphone right out of my brother's hand while he stood there, too stunned to stop her. The room went silent. That awful, heavy kind of silence where everyone knows something bad is happening, but nobody knows how to intervene yet. Sarah smiled at the crowd like she was about to deliver good news and started talking about love, about second chances, about how sometimes we make mistakes that lead us back home. True love doesn't give up, she declared, her voice carrying across the silent room. And sometimes the universe tests us to see if we're strong enough to fight for what matters. I realized with growing horror that she wasn't there to apologize, or even just to cause a scene for attention. She was there to reclaim me, to publicly announce that I was supposed to be hers. Alejandra's grip on my hand tightened, and I could feel her shaking, not with fear, but with pure, simmering anger. And I knew I had to do something before this got even worse. I walked up to the stage and held out my hand for the microphone. Sarah hesitated, looked at me with this hopeful expression, like maybe I was about to agree with her, about to validate whatever twisted fantasy she'd constructed. I took the microphone and looked out at all these people who'd come to celebrate me and Alejandra. People who had no idea what Sarah had put me through. And I felt this crystal clear clarity I hadn't felt in years. I turned to Sarah and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You once told me that when you love someone, you should be happy for them and their soulmate." She flinched, like I'd slapped her. I continued, my voice steady, unwavering, "Alejandra is mine. Please be happy for me, and please leave my life." The room was completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Sarah's face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds: confusion, anger, humiliation, rage. She started yelling, calling me selfish, calling me cruel, saying I'd never understood her, that I'd never fought for her, that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I just stood there, holding the microphone, while she spiraled. Finally, Alejandra's dad subtly signaled to someone, and 2 security guards started making their way toward the stage. That's when I recognized one of them, the taller guy with the buzz cut and the radio clipped to his belt. It was David. Apparently, he'd started moonlighting at private events after his mall gig. And the irony was so thick I almost laughed. Sarah saw him at the exact same moment I did, and something in her snapped completely. She lunged at him, actually lunged, and started hitting his chest, screaming, "You were supposed to be different. You promised me forever." David looked mortified, trying to grab her wrists while still staying professional, and his partner jumped in to help restrain her. Sarah was completely unhinged now, spitting, scratching, calling David a failure, calling me a coward, calling Alejandra names I won't repeat. They managed to get her arms secured and started walking her toward the exit while she thrashed and screamed. Every single person at that party just watched in stunned silence. I saw David's face as they passed me. Saw the exhaustion there, the regret. And I understood that whatever Sarah had promised him about destiny and soulmates had fallen apart, just like it had with me. He caught my eye for just a second, and I saw something there that looked like an apology, like he finally understood what I'd been dealing with. The door closed behind them, and the room stayed quiet for another few seconds. Then, my brother, bless his heart, grabbed the microphone and said, "Well, that was unexpected. Let's get back to celebrating these two." People laughed nervously, and conversation slowly started up again. Alejandra pulled me aside into a hallway and asked if I was okay. And I realized I was. I was actually okay, because for the first time since SAR all left, I'd chosen peace over saving her, chosen my future over her chaos. She hugged me tight and whispered that she was proud of me. And I felt something break loose in my chest, some last piece of guilt I'd been carrying about not fighting harder when Sarah left. We went back to the party and finished the night surrounded by people who actually loved us, who actually wanted us to be happy. And when we got home that night, I held Alejandra and felt profoundly grateful that I'd let Sarah go, that I hadn't fought for something that was already destroying me. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from an unknown number and a voicemail from Sarah, crying about how I'd humiliated her, how I'd turned everyone against her, how I'd ruined her life. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. I thought the worst was over. Thought that public humiliation would be enough to make her disappear for good. Thought we could finally move on without her shadow hanging over us. I didn't know she was just getting started. About 2 weeks later, I got a call from a lawyer I didn't recognize, asking if I knew anything about a lawsuit. Sarah had filed one against David, against the security company he worked for, claiming excessive force, emotional distress, physical assault, the whole 9 yards. She was asking for $2 million, positioning herself as a victim who'd been brutalized by aggressive security guards at a private event. My first reaction was disbelief, then sheer panic, because even though I wasn't named in the suit, I knew this could spiral into something that touched me and Alejandra, could drag our names through depositions and court documents and local news coverage. I called Alejandra immediately, and she could hear the stress in my voice. She told me to breathe. Told me we'd handle it together. Told me Sarah couldn't hurt us unless we let her. But I was scared, genuinely scared, because I'd seen what Sarah could do when she felt wronged, how she could twist narratives and play victim and make people believe her version of events. The security company hired a defense team, and their lawyer contacted me. He wanted a statement about what happened that night, about Sarah's behavior leading up to the incident, about whether I'd seen her attack David first. I told them everything, gave them a written statement, walked them through the entire evening, from the moment she walked in uninvited to the moment she lunged at David. They seemed confident they had a strong case. But I couldn't shake this feeling that Sarah was going to find a way to win, to make everyone else pay for her bad decisions. The lawyer mentioned that several guests had also given statements corroborating my account, which should have made me feel better, but somehow made it worse, because now more people were getting dragged into Sarah's chaos. The lawsuit moved forward, and a preliminary hearing was scheduled for early fall, about 4 months after the engagement party. During that time, I barely slept. I kept imagining worst-case scenarios, Sarah winning millions, the story going viral, our wedding getting postponed or cancelled because of the media attention, my job finding out and questioning my judgment. My boss actually pulled me aside one day and asked if everything was okay because my performance had dropped, and I had to explain the situation without sounding like I was involved in some Jerry Springer-level drama. Alejandra, though, planned the wedding anyway. She kept moving forward like Sarah didn't exist. I tried to match her calm, but inside, I was falling apart. She'd pick out flowers, and I'd be thinking about court dates. She'd talk about the honeymoon, and I'd be refreshing news sites to see if the lawsuit had been covered. I started having nightmares about Sarah showing up at the wedding, about her filing more lawsuits, about this never ending. The day of the hearing finally came, and I sat in the courtroom gallery next to Alejandra, watching Sarah walk in, wearing a conservative dress and minimal makeup, playing the part of the wounded innocent. She had a lawyer who looked expensive, probably someone she'd convinced to take the case on contingency. He made his opening statement about how his client had been assaulted without provocation, how she'd suffered lasting psychological trauma, how the security company had failed in their duty to use appropriate force. Then the defense stood up and mentioned that body cam footage had been submitted as evidence. My heart rate spiked. I hadn't known they had video. The lawyer asked to play it for the court, and suddenly, everyone in that room could see exactly what happened. Could see Sarah lunging at David, spitting in his face, scratching at his arms while he tried to back away and maintain professional distance. You could hear her screaming on the audio, calling him a failure, calling him worthless, and then see both guards trying to restrain her as gently as possible while she thrashed and kicked. The footage ran for maybe 3 minutes, but it felt longer. And when it ended, the judge looked at Sarah's lawyer with this expression that said everything. Sarah stood up before her lawyer could respond and started yelling that the video was edited, that it didn't show what happened before, that they were all protecting each other. The judge told her to sit down and be quiet or he'd hold her in contempt. Her lawyer tried to salvage something, argued that even if she'd been aggressive, the guards had used excessive force. But the judge wasn't buying it. He dismissed the case entirely, said it was frivolous and a waste of the court's time, and then did something I didn't expect. He ordered Sarah to pay the security company's legal fees and issued a formal reprimand that would stay on her record. Sarah lost it right there in the courtroom, started screaming about injustice, about corruption, about how everyone was against her. The bailiff had to escort her out while she yelled threats at David, at the lawyers, at the judge. I sat there feeling this weird mix of relief and emptiness, like I'd been holding my breath for months and could finally exhale, but didn't quite know what to do with the air. The security company's lawyer told me afterward that they were considering filing a countersuit for defamation and abuse of process, and I said I'd cooperate however they needed. Sarah's lawsuit didn't just get dismissed, it got recorded as a loss with penalties, which meant she now had legal fees she couldn't pay and a record that made her look unstable and litigious. About a month later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd been fired from the daycare center. Apparently, the lawsuit and the public breakdown had made parents uncomfortable, and the administration decided she was a liability. One parent had apparently seen the engagement party meltdown video that someone had posted online, and that was enough to raise concerns about her judgment around children. Then, I heard she'd moved back in with her parents across town. That David had blocked her on everything and gotten a restraining order after she'd shown up at his apartment multiple times. That she was working as a cleaning person for an office building downtown. Part of me wanted to feel vindictive, wanted to celebrate her downfall, but mostly, I just felt tired. Relieved that the chaos was finally, truly over. Alejandra and I got married that December in a small ceremony with tight security and a private guest list. No drama, no surprises, just two people promising to build something stable together. The venue had strict instructions about Sarah, with her photo provided to security. And I hated that we had to take those precautions, but it was necessary. We bought a house in the suburbs, adopted a dog, started talking about kids. And I realized I'd completely stopped thinking about Sarah, except as a cautionary tale I might tell someday. Last I heard, she was still working that cleaning job, still living with her parents, still posting cryptic things on social media about betrayal and karma. A buddy sent me a screenshot once of her posting something about fighting for love. And I didn't even feel angry, just sad that she'd burned down her entire life chasing some fantasy about destiny and soulmates. Alejandra got pregnant in early 2024, and we had a daughter this past January. Holding her in the hospital, I thought about how different my life would have been if Sarah hadn't left. If I'd stayed in that relationship and eventually married her, I would have been miserable. Constantly managing her moods, constantly wondering when the next crisis would hit, constantly walking on eggshells around someone who saw everything as a test of loyalty. She said she just wanted to fight for love, wanted to follow her heart, wanted to be happy. But love doesn't look like destruction. Real love looks like Alejandra falling asleep on the couch while feeding our daughter at 3 a.m. Looks like building something quiet and lasting. Looks like choosing someone every day, without drama or cosmic signs. Sarah taught me what I didn't want. And for that, I guess I should be grateful. but I'll never understand how someone can confuse chaos with passion, can mistake obsession for destiny, can destroy everything around them and call it love. What do you think about this story? Have you ever had someone like Sarah in your life, mistaking their own chaos for a profound journey? Let me know in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, please drop a like and subscribe for more real-life narratives.